stand on the ashes of a world that consumed itself. We have seen how the ambition of one can turn nations to dust. We have felt the price of total war. The Singularity Alliance was not born of friendship. It was forged in fire and mutual distrust. In the video you're about to see, our history is laid bare. It was painstaking work involving conflicts even among ourselves. We fought one another. We bled on the same battlefields before we learned the brutal, simple truth. Coexistence on this planet is possible, but only by adhering to clearly defined, unbreakable rules. Memorize them, live by them. Rule 1. The limit of power. No member of the alliance may exceed a military potential of 2,800 victory points. This is the boundary for your ambition. This is the leash on your power. Rule 2. Absolute transparency. All military development and troop movements are open to alliance inspection. Secrets no longer exist. Rule 3. The inevitability of consequence. A violation is not a subject for debate. It is a trigger for correction. A correction I will lead by force. We do not seek trust. We demand compliance with the system, because the system is the only thing standing between us and the next apocalypse. Our survival is a privilege earned by daily adherence to these laws. Year is 2025. The world takes a fragile breath in the aftermath of the total war. The ashes of the old era have not yet settled, and on the ruins of former nations, new unprecedented empires are already rising. For long years, the planet lived under the iron heel of a single hegemon, Muammar Gaddafi. His great socialist people's Libyan Arab Jamahiriya was not just a state, it was a colossus that had consumed all of Europe, most of Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and stretched its arms as far as India. His army seemed invincible, his power absolute. But every tyranny has its end. Rising against Gaddafi was not a mere rebellion, but an alliance of three new world powers. Three empires, born in the chaos of war, who refused to bend the knee. Their names were spoken by the world with both fear and hope. The Czech Empire, the Iceland state, and the East Asian Empire under the leadership of Indonesia. It was Indonesia that became the heart of this resistance. Its leader, a figure shrouded in legend, a man who, in the midst of global collapse, did not just preserve his nation, but transformed it into a superpower. He was not a politician of the old mold, but a brilliant strategist. He understood that the future lay not in old alliances, but in absolute consolidation. Under his command, Indonesia united all of East Asia under its flag. The mighty China, the technological Japan, the resource-rich Siberia, they all became part of a single monolith, a single will. This leader did not ask for loyalty, he demanded it and he received it. His empire became the forge where the weapons capable of challenging Gaddafi himself were crafted. But even this incredible power was not enough. Gaddafi's regime was a cancer that had metastasized across the entire planet. His economy, built on the endless resources of conquered peoples, seemed invulnerable. His army was a legion that knew no defeat. The Indonesian leader understood, to kill a dragon you need other hunters, and he found them. He turned his gaze to the west, where two other powers, forged in the fires of European battles, hardened by steel and desperation, had been born. He extended his hand to them not as a supplicant, but as an equal. Thus, an alliance destined to change the world was formed. The war against Gaddafi was inevitable, and it became the bloodiest in human history. The coalition's intelligence networks, like a virus, infiltrated the Jamahiriya's economic system, causing a collapse from within. The mighty war machine was left without its lifeblood, without funding, and then rebellions ignited across all its territories. Gaddafi's empire fell, consumed by the very fire it had spread. The world was saved, but at what cost, and for how long? Victory over Gaddafi did not bring peace. It merely created a power vacuum that threatened to consume the victors themselves. Each member of the coalition paid a terrible price. The second power to answer Indonesia's call was Iceland. This island nation, for centuries considered the periphery of the world, had transformed into the mistress of the seas. Its leader, a brilliant Grand Admiral, bet not on land but on water. He created a fleet the world had not seen since the height of the United States. Carrier strike groups like steel leviathans roamed the oceans, projecting Iceland's power to any point on the globe. They had seized Britain and controlled the sea lanes of this very fleet that became the battering ram that broke Gaddafi's naval blockade. But the counter-strike was devastating. In titanic battles in the Atlantic and Mediterranean, the Icelandic fleet bled. When Gaddafi fell, the admiral looked upon the remnants of his armada. 90% of his fleet lay at the bottom of the ocean. Iceland had won, but it had lost its primary instrument of power. Its war-oriented economy demanded immediate recovery. The third ally was the Czech Empire. Born in the heart of Europe, it became the land-based shield of the coalition. Its leader focused on massive armored armies and disciplined infantry. The Czechs bore the brunt of the Jamahiriya's land forces advancing through Europe. It was a slaughter. For months, the front moved by mere meters, leaving behind scorched earth and mountains of bodies. The Czech Republic could not have stood alone. Only the support of the Icelandic fleet from the sea and Indonesian expeditionary forces could turn the tide. But when the cannons fell silent, the Czech Empire was bled white, its army was virtually annihilated, and its human losses were incalculable. 3 months of peace. For a planet accustomed to total war, it was an eternity. Indonesia, Iceland, and the Czech Republic began to rebuild their empires, licking their wounds. They were a military coalition, bound by blood and a shared victory. But a fourth player, a power that had not participated in Gaddafi's overthrow, but had watched carefully from the shadows. A power born in Africa. While Gaddafi controlled the north of the continent, in the south, in a small impoverished country called Sudan, a man the world knew by a single moniker came to power, the Atheist. He believed in no gods, but made millions believe in him. He was the greatest strategist of his time. Taking over a country with a weak economy, he transformed it into an empire that united 60% of Africa, and he did so almost bloodlessly. Through force, diplomacy, and an iron will, he established peace in his territories while the rest of the world burned. His stated goal was peace for the entire planet, and for this, he created his own alliance. He named it Singularity. The Atheists invited the three victors, Indonesia, Iceland, and the Czech Republic, to join Singularity. The alliance's vision was simple and brutal: to save the planet from self-destruction. To achieve this, one unbreakable rule was established: the potential of each empire was measured in victory points, and no one, ever, under any circumstances, was allowed to exceed the critical threshold of 2,800 points. This was the guarantee of a fragile balance. If anyone grew too strong, the Atheist, as the leader of the alliance, reserved the right to reduce their potential by force. Joint military exercises were meant to be the only battlefields, but were the hegemons of yesterday ready to accept such rules? Were they prepared to surrender control over their own might? The fragile peace built on the rules of singularity could not last. The first to challenge the system was Indonesia. Having recovered from the war with incredible speed, it invested in the technologies of the future, long-range strategic aviation and hypersonic missile systems. Its military potential grew exponentially, and one day the inevitable happened. The needle on the gauge of Indonesia's power crossed the red line. 2,800 victory points. The rule had been broken. The leader of the alliance, the Atheist, could not ignore it. Negotiations began. The Atheist did not demand disarmament. His offer was subtle, diplomatic. To reduce its victory points, Indonesia was to transfer control of a single asset to South Sudan, an oil refinery. But this was no ordinary refinery. It was located in the territory of the former Tajikistan, a state torn apart during the Total War. This piece of land, seized by Indonesia, had become a symbol of its power and the bone of contention. For the leader of Indonesia, this was not just a demand, it was a humiliation. To give up what was taken by force, he ignored all diplomatic letters. The world held its breath. Everyone understood what was happening. This was not a dispute over a refinery. This was a test of will, a test to see if the Atheist was truly prepared to use force against the strongest member of his own alliance. Indonesia began conducting provocations in Africa, using the fight against remnant rebels as a cover, violating the ban on certain weapon types on the continent. It was flexing its muscles, preparing for total war. Its leader counted on the support of the old coalition, the Czech Republic and Iceland, but the Atheist was not idle either. His diplomats worked tirelessly with Prague and Reykjavik, urging them not to intervene but to act as mediators. He prepared his army, not for parades but for a new generation of warfare. Thousands of drones capable of traveling 3,000 kilometers were ready to strike. The most advanced anti-air defense systems formed a dome over his entire empire. He knew Indonesia would not back down. He knew that intercontinental ballistic missiles could be the response, and he prepared for it. And so we stand on the brink today. The war has not yet begun, but its icy breath can already be felt in every news broadcast, in every diplomatic démarche. The Atheist is preparing a special military operation to establish control over the refinery's territory. Indonesia is preparing to launch a massive nuclear strike in response. The Czech Republic and Iceland, bled dry by the last war, face the most terrible choice in their history: support an old ally and unleash Armageddon, or betray him in the name of a peace that might be nothing more than a brief reprieve. The world holds its breath. A new total war is coming, perhaps the final one, a war that will finally settle all scores and determine who will rule the planet, and maybe only after passing through nuclear ash will the survivors finally understand the simple truth the Atheists try to convey. Coexistence is possible only under strict rules, and the price for breaking those rules is not measured in victory points, but in the very existence of humanity. The doomsday clock is inches from midnight. The only question is, whose hand will be the first to push the button?